This is the Enjoyer Podcast. I'm your host, James Dixon. A few episodes ago, in conversation with John James, I asked the black governor question. Is Michigan ready for a black governor? But as John went on with his answer, I realized that this really isn't a question among Republicans. Right now, James is leading the polls by a country mile. There's plenty of time, of course, between now and the August 2026 primary, but my guess is if John James does stumble on anything, it won't be on the skin that God gave him. After all, John James was black in 2020 when he ran ahead of Trump in his Senate race against Gary Peters, an unsuccessful effort. He was black in 2022 when he moved to Macomb County and beat a 50-year Macomb County legend, Carl Marlenga, by 1,600 votes, one of the closest races in America. That night, John James was just about the only Republican in Michigan who had a good night and what was a blue wave year. And James was black last year when he took on Marlenga in a rematch, and this time won by 26,000 votes, more than 10xing his win margin from one cycle to the next. So we don't wallow on these questions, but we are aware of it because we know that human beings are tribal. That's why we have no problem asking this question or answering it. And the answer, at least as far as Republicans are concerned, is yeah, probably. We could probably do that if we thought that black person was the right one for the job. When man wanted to build a temple into heaven for his own glory, God confused their language. He made the men speak different languages. Soon they were unable to work together anymore, and they walked off the job, and they left the Tower of Babel unfinished. Our natural distrust of each other and our affinity for birds of a feather could be called the curse of Babel. It's not human nature exactly. It's a curse we've been made to overcome. In 2025, we're as close to overcoming it as any people ever have been. But our counterparts in the Democrat Party, can they be as honest as we are? Can they even ask these kind of questions, let alone answer them? If they could, somebody on the left would have told you by now what I'm about to say. Going into the 2026 election, the Democrats are no party for white men. This is a winning model of success. It's done well for them as recently as 2020. It's staring them in the face, and they refuse to take it. In a way, Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan did tell you all this when he fled the Democrat Party and chose to run for governor as a trans independent. When he explained his departure, Mike Duggan offered the common line, "I didn't leave the Democrat Party, the Democrat Party left me." At least some of you who listen to me are former Democrats yourself, and so when a Mike Duggan says the party left him, you feel the same way. You don't feel any need to probe any deeper, but I do, and we must, and we have to ask this question. When Mike Duggan says the Democrat Party left me, what would make him think that? Keep in mind, Duggan is the mayor of Detroit, one of the blackest and bluest cities in America. There's no groundswell in the black community that told him to leave the Democrat Party that black people support in large numbers. That's not a thing. And so it wasn't black or blue that was Duggan's obstacle to further advancement. It was pink. In 2018, Gretchen Whitmer, Jocelyn Benson, and Dana Nessel wrote a new chapter in Michigan political history. The pink trio swept into the governor's office, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General's office all in one cycle. At once it was a blue wave and a pink wave carried out by white women. The 2018 election was a trans flag personified. Then, 4 years later in 2022, with limitless abortion on the ballot, the three girl bosses won again. Even as Gretchen Whitmer faced anger for her handling of lockdowns in the pandemic, the girl bosses all did well. They even took over the legislature, the Democrats did. And so going into the 2026 election, Democrats are a victim of their own success in 2018 and 2022. While the national Democrats are trying to find their way back from the wilderness, trying to build a coalition that can win, Michigan Democrats are still partying like it's 2018. They still fully buy into the idea that demographics is destiny. And as women and as feminists, they feel they have numbers too big to ignore. They feel that if I shriek loud enough and long enough, some man will make some mistake that gives the girl bosses another 8-year reign. What they don't realize is 2018 was a long time ago, and so was 2022. Last year, with Whitmer as Biden's campaign co-chair, Biden briefly tried to follow the Whitmer 2022 strategy by focusing on abortion. It worked for Big Gretch. Why wouldn't it work for the big guy, right? Well, wrong. We all saw the ads, and then one day we didn't anymore. Because you can't just say that abortion's on the ballot. It has to be true, and it has to feel true. It was true and it felt true in 2022, just months after a Supreme Court ruling that took Roe versus Wade off the books. That wasn't the case last year, and it won't be the case next year. It turns out that abortion is not some kind of master key to electoral victory. As the political science is always changing, abortion is best understood as a tactic of a time. Not the perfect play that always works no matter where you are in the field. That doesn't exist. But when Jocelyn Benson rolled out her governor campaign in January in the pages of the Detroit News, she was still fighting the last war. Read this excerpt from the Detroit News press office. It was from a January story headlined, Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson announces run for governor. The story reads, in part, Benson is officially starting her bid for Michigan's top political office on the 52nd anniversary of the U.S. Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision. This decision, Craig Mauger explains, protected abortion access until it was overturned in June 2022. And now Benson is vowing to be a governor who supports abortion rights. Because Mauger was acting as a PR man for Benson and not a journalist in that moment, he never mentioned that 5 months after Roe was overturned, the people of Michigan approved limitless abortion. All of Benson's horses, all of her scribes, all of her men can't change the basic reality. Abortion without limits is the law in Michigan. 3 years ago, such a statement would have brought anguish to God's people. 3 years later, Team Molech has become a victim of its own success. As it was since Joseph, as it was with Jesus, what man meant for evil, God meant it for good. And so right now, Benson, the supposed Democrat frontrunner, is stuck in perpetual 2022, thinking that if she just presses the abortion button, she'll win. What she doesn't realize is that Gretchen Whitmer killed the golden goose of abortion and ate all the eggs herself. And because the Michigan Democrats as a whole are stuck in perpetual 2018, they think they can defy gravity forever. They think we won't notice that if the Michigan Democrats get their wish, they'll have a Pittsburgh carpetbagger, Jocelyn Benson, running for governor, and a New Jersey carpetbagger, Mallory McMorrow, running for U.S. Senate. This is a target-rich environment for Republicans who are trying to save our state from fellow ruin. But what do the Democrats get out of it? What did the Democrats get out of it? Mike Duggan fleeing the Democrat Party wasn't about their beliefs in general. I never saw Mike Duggan speak up for life generally and against limitless abortion, even as black women, like they have in Detroit, have 50% of the abortions in Michigan, despite being only 14% of the women. I never saw Mike Duggan speak up against lawfare, even as a president was impeached on trumped-up charges and then sued in every court of law that would take the case. This tells me that it's not what Democrats believe in general that bothers Duggan. He believes that stuff too, and he would govern that way. He doesn't know any other way. No, it's what the Democrats believe specifically that bothers Duggan. Specifically, they perceive Benson as the front runner and Whitmer's heir apparent, and they'll paint the men who oppose her as sexists trying to deny a girl boss her just due. The Democrats have decided that they will win on girl power going forward, or they will run themselves into the ground. So going into the most important state election of our lives, it's girl bosses or bust for the Democrats. And Mike Duggan is a smart man with a long memory. He remembers what most of Michigan has forgotten, but will soon be reminded of. He remembers the gambit he pulled in 2018 that would have, had it worked, denied Gretchen Whitmer her page of the history book. Let's hop in the Wayback Machine to January 2018. In theory, there's still plenty of time ahead of the Democrat primary, but not really. Whitmer had declared for the race a year prior. And so with Whitmer as the frontrunner, Duggan, Detroit mayor as he is now, tried to recruit Senator Gary Peters to run for governor instead, in effect to snatch the nomination from Big Gretch. Whitmer was the frontrunner, but Duggan thought that Peters was the better choice. He tried recruiting him, and Peters declined, and the story made the papers. Whitmer won the nomination, and then she won the governor's race. Now she's at the tail end of her second term and has lost any interest she ever had in being our governor. You don't just become Michigan governor to be governor. Governor was supposed to be her springboard to a bigger job in Washington, perhaps to the biggest job of all. Instead, 2 terms later, all Whitmer has to show for it is a children's book and a place on my wall. Maybe that's what Mike Duggan saw back then, that Whitmer, in his heart of heart, that he knew she was not any chief executive. It turns out he was right in that assessment. Did the Democrats thank him? No. At the time, Democrats tarred Mike Duggan as a sexist for daring suggest that a man would be the better choice. Aesop's Fables tells us of the wind and the sun. The wind and the sun make a bet. Which one of them can get that man walking in that park to take off his jacket? The wind goes first. The wind blows and blows and blows to get the jacket off, but the man only grabs it tighter, pulls it to himself. It's not coming off. Now it's the sun's turn. When it's the sun's turn, the sun burns hotter, and the man takes the jacket off voluntarily. Mike Duggan in 2018 was the wind trying to blow Whitmer out of the race. It didn't work and only made women hold on to her tighter. For him to have success in 2026, he needed to have been the sun in 2018. Let Democrats make the mistake and learn from the mistake. Sometimes these memories of failure do more for us. Whereas if we think that everything we set out to do will succeed, we'll get a big head. We'll think that we can keep doing the same thing and it yield the same results. That's not really how the world works. So for Duggan to have success in 2026, he needs to be the sun. He needs to light the path to a better place. He needed to present as a real, bona fide chief executive who could really run things right. But why would a Michigan Democrat feel the need to change right now? In their eyes, Gretchen Whitmer is a successful 2-term governor who for a time really damaged the Republican Party. In their eyes, the Whitmer model is one worth repeating, and Mike Duggan is just another white man who can't read a calendar and see that times have changed. And so Michigan Democrats are set to nominate Whitmer 2.0 in the form of Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. But a funny thing happened on the way to Benson's coronation. We started sending her FOIAs. Contributor Anna Hoffman, one of my good friends, has been leading the charge on that, and it turns out the lady's clueless. Benson's been Secretary of State since 2019. But as her text showed, she still can't get basic data from her team, data that was needed to save her political future after a Chinese guy voted in the election last year and the vote counted. So it's not Jocelyn Benson's deeds or her abilities that Mike Duggan fears. Remember, Jocelyn Benson now has run at this point in 3 statewide races, all for Secretary of State. She won 2 and she lost 1, her first one against Ruth Johnson. Benson's never competed in a primary before because Secretary of State is a convention race. In 2026, it's actually Jocelyn Benson who is the untested commodity. No, it wasn't Benson's deeds or abilities that ran Duggan off. It was the Democrats' DEI mindset. Democrats don't say this as much as they used to, but during the Obama era, they used to crow actively that demographics is destiny. The theory went that as America got younger and browner, the more Democrats there would be, creating a permanent Democrat majority. It hasn't happened. Last year, Trump built a coalition across racial and demographic lines. Pretty much the only group that hates Trump is the only group that views Whitmer as a good governor and Benson as a potential governor. Unmarried white women. And in the Democrat Party in 2025 and 2026, unmarried white women are the loudest voice in the room. They're Mike Duggan's biggest barrier to entry right now. And Duggan is smart enough to know that what he attempted in 2018, that switcheroo from Gretchen Whitmer, would be painted in the same vein as his 2026 run. The actions of a white man who believes that he knows best and the girls aren't up for the job. The only white guy in the governor's race on the Democrat side is Genesee County Sheriff Chris Swanson. Swanson's a dark horse. His whole theory is that his high energy level will be a contrast with Jocelyn Benson, who moves around with a certain type of lethargic entitlement. Benson almost looks bored as she waits for someone to place that crown atop her head. But if you peek beyond the surface, if you look beneath Swanson's burly exterior, you see a guy whose mannerisms are closer to Tim Walz than General Eisenhower. This was a guy who marched with Black Lives Matter and was eager to do so. When Mike Duggan did it, he was masked up. You could tell that every step was a little bit painful for him. But Swanson did it with flourish. Swanson's the guy who views the death of 30,000 babies every year through abortion as a woman's right to choose, who argued for an MS-13 member to be brought back from El Salvador. A cop is supposed to be the protector of all, but Swanson is led around by the whims and the wants of the women who run the Democrat Party. Essentially, Chris Swanson is running as a 6'2" version of Jocelyn Benson. Chris Swanson is a man who's decided that if he can't beat the girl bosses, he might as well join them. Mike Duggan made a different choice. He's smart enough to know not to join them, but what's puzzling to me is he didn't have enough faith to believe he could beat them either. By running as an independent, Mike Duggan's made the miscalculation of a lifetime. Had he waited for Benson to go first, he would have been there to watch her stumble out of the gate. Everyone else would have seen it too, and it would have been clear, quick, that Benson is no front runner. Not really. And then there would be Mike Duggan ready to be in Michigan in 2026 what Joe Biden was in America in 2020. The one guy, the white guy, everybody can agree on. Mike Duggan is a gifted administrator and a smart politician. He didn't take on Jocelyn Benson not out of fear, but because he knew the deck would be stacked against him. It's as simple as that. When Duggan says that the Democrat Party left him, what he really means is his demographic is not a prized one these days. Think about it. Think about our history as a state in Michigan. The last 2 Democrat governors we've had in Michigan have been women. You have to go back 40 years in history to find a white man the Michigan Democrats have successfully run for governor. You have to go back to Jim Blanchard, Howard Wolpe, Jeffrey Feiger. They lost. And so the Democrats' DEI mindset requires someone other than a white man to run, even if a white man, and especially if a white man, happens to be the best man for the job. Throw in our unique history as a state, and it's clear Mike Duggan was always in for a struggle, even if he'd stayed. The times require a girl boss, but Mike Duggan wasn't getting any younger. He's bored with Detroit. He feels like he's already mastered it. And so Mike Duggan's departure was really a commentary on the state of the Michigan Democrat Party. In 2025 and likely in 2026, the Michigan Democrats are no party for white men. What's a white man to do when he can't beat them and won't join them? Go rogue. Go his own way. Go independent. That's what Mike Duggan's doing. And that he was driven to this point should tell you everything you need to know about the Democrats. They're the ones with the demographic problem going into 2026, actually. And so the next time someone asks you if Michigan's ready for a black governor, don't take the bait. flip it around and ask them, will Michigan Democrats ever elevate another white man to a top post?